phone, leave your name and message, I'll get back to you.
When the Rockford Files premiered in 1974, it shattered every rule detective shows lived by. James Garner's Jim Rockford wasn't a hero. He was an ex-con living in a trailer, charging $200 a day plus expenses he'd never collect. Behind the charm and those iconic answering machine gags lurked devastating secrets. Career-ending injuries, million-dollar lawsuits against his own studio, and a star who battled his network in brutal legal fights. Fact number 10. The brutal physical toll that literally destroyed James Garner's body. James Garner insisted on performing most of his own stunts throughout the Rockford Files run, including fistfights, car chases, and other difficult and potentially dangerous action sequences. The cost was devastating. Garner admitted he underwent knee surgery during every hiatus for 5 consecutive years. A knee injury from his National Guard days worsened with the continuous jumping and rolling required by the show. In 1979, Garner was hospitalized with a bleeding ulcer. When his doctors ordered him to rest, NBC canceled the Rockford Files while he recuperated from another knee surgery during an unscheduled hiatus. During the filming of one episode, Garner fell down a flight of stairs, which aggravated his recently operated knee. His doctor instructed him to stay off his feet for a couple of days, but after the first day away from the studio, Universal began legal proceedings for breach of contract. Garner immediately returned to work in agony. In 2000, he had both knees replaced. The show's physical demands had permanently crippled its star, ending the series in 1980 and leaving Garner unable to walk without pain for the rest of his life. Fact number 9. The exhausting creative burden behind those iconic answering machine messages. From 1974 to 1980, every episode of the Rockford Files began with someone leaving a message on private investigator Jim Rockford's answering machine. The show's 122-episode run featured answering machine messages as a signature opening element. The messages were usually unrelated to the current episode, but were often related to previous events in earlier episodes. They were a humorous device that invited the viewer to return to the quirky, down-on-his-luck world of Jim Rockford. But behind the brilliance lurked a nightmare for the writing staff. As the series went on, the answering machine gimmick became a burden for the show's writers, who struggled to write entertaining messages for every episode. They came up with the answering machine openings, sometimes just at the very last minute before airing an episode. The writers sometimes ran out of ideas, and therefore asked the crew or secretaries about possible answering machine opening jokes. Suggestions from staff and crew were welcome and often used. What began as innovative storytelling became a creative challenge, forcing writers to constantly invent new gags while managing the demands of writing entire episodes. Fact number 8. The groundbreaking lawsuit that exposed Hollywood's creative accounting forever. In July 1983, Garner filed suit against Universal Studios for $16.5 million in connection with his ongoing dispute from the Rockford Files. The suit charged Universal with breach of contract, failure to deal in good faith and fairly, and fraud and deceit. Garner alleged that Universal was creatively accounting, 2 words that are now part of the Hollywood lexicon. Garner wasn't the first to fight for his share of net profits, but he was among the first high-profile cases to go public, even appearing on 60 Minutes to plead his case. In a 60 Minutes interview, he claimed the Rockford Files ledger showed the production had purchased the same car from Universal 4 separate times. According to attorney William Masterson, the actors' company, Cherokee Productions, was supposed to receive 37.5% of the net profits. In fact, Garner claimed he'd only gotten $250,000 from gross revenues of $119 million. Finally, in 1989, Garner and Universal settled out of court with a confidential settlement reported to be $14 million. In doing so, he established that an actor would not necessarily be blackballed for demanding his just due. The battle lasted 9 years and brought lasting attention to Hollywood's accounting practices. Fact number 7. The signature driving stunt that made professional stunt drivers look amateur. James Garner's most famous move was his J-turn, a tire-smoking 180-degree change of direction. To execute a Rockford, Jim Rockford would drive about 35 miles per hour in reverse, then let off the gas, turn the steering wheel sharply, and pull on the emergency brake. The car's front end would swing around 180 degrees, and Rockford would be off, now driving forward. People started to call his signature move a Rockford, although Garner didn't invent it. Before Rockford, it was called a J-turn, or a moonshiner's turn. Show creator Stephen J. Cannell once tried to use professional stunt drivers over Garner because he was worried his star might get hurt. But the new drivers he hired were tame compared to Garner, and Cannell had to reverse his decision. Garner's longtime friend and stand-in, Luis Delgado, confirmed that James Garner handled the car better than most professional stunt drivers in the business. The show used 3 cars every season: the hero or beauty car, the action car, and the damage car. The maneuver became so iconic, it's sometimes referred to simply as the Rockford. Fact number 6. The bizarre casting choice that made television history's unlikeliest father and son. Although playing father and son, Noah Beery Jr. was only 15 years older than James Garner. This created one of television's strangest family dynamics. Rocky was portrayed by Noah Beery Jr., except in the 1974 pilot film, where he was portrayed by Robert Donnelly. In the pilot, Rocky is portrayed as more of a small-time grifter and operator. At one point, working with a partner, Rocky unsuccessfully tries to run a minor scam on Jim, his own son. The character tested so poorly that producers completely rewrote Rocky's personality for the series. James Garner wanted very badly for Jack Elam to play Rocky. Elam declined the role because he didn't want to end out his career playing James Garner's father in a weekly television series. When Beery took over, he transformed Rocky into an honest, warm, retired truck driver. Beery's version of Rocky was generally honest and reliable, though not above working an unreported job under the table to supplement his pension income, or eating the most expensive food in Jim's refrigerator if he dropped by while Jim was out. The age gap became invisible through Beery's performance. Rocky Rockford was ranked number 45 in TV Guide's list of the 50 greatest television dads of all time. Fact number 5. The breakout guest role that accidentally created television's next superstar detective. Tom Selleck appeared in 2 Rockford Files episodes as Lance White, a stunningly successful and impossibly perfect private investigator who was everything Jim Rockford was not. White's hunches always turned out right. Cops loved him, and women adored him. His smooth, glamorous lifestyle drove the struggling Rockford insane with frustration. The character was meant as parody, a satire of unrealistic television detectives. But Selleck's performance was so compelling that it helped land him the starring role in Magnum P.I. Ironically, Selleck initially resisted Magnum because he feared it would just be Lance White relocated to Hawaii. The producers convinced him otherwise, creating a more flawed, complex character. In a 1987 Magnum P.I. episode titled Tiger's Fan, characters discussed a Rockford Files rerun featuring Lance White, with the show paying homage to its origins while poking fun at the overly perfect character. Joe Santos appeared in that Magnum episode, reprising his detective role from Rockford. Lance White helped showcase Selleck's talents, contributing to one of the 80s biggest television franchises, while mocking the very archetype it would feature. Fact number 4. The iconic fee that became absurdly worthless as the show continued. Jim Rockford's famous fee was $200 a day, plus expenses, a rate he had been charging since the late 1960s. When the series began in September 1974, $200 was worth nearly $1,200 in today's money when adjusted for inflation. By the time the show ended in 1980, that same fee had been dramatically eroded by inflation. Yet Rockford stubbornly refused to raise his rates for 6 years. By the time of the 1990s reunion movies, Rockford had finally increased his fee to $450 a day, plus expenses. But the real tragedy was not just inflation. In a running gag throughout the entire series, circumstances constantly conspired to prevent Rockford from collecting the full amount he was owed after completing a case. Over the years, he was involved in several cases for which his investigative efforts should have earned him significant bonuses or rewards, but he was never able to collect them. Rockford chased down killers, exposed corruption, and solved impossible cases, yet he remained perpetually broke, unable to collect payment from the very people he saved. His trailer park existence was not just character color, it was financial reality. Fact number 3. The heartbreaking 5-year ordeal that shaped everything Rockford became. In the series storyline, James Scott Rockford had served time in California's San Quentin prison in the 1960s due to a wrongful conviction for armed robbery. After 5 years, he was released when his conviction was overturned. Rocky took out a mortgage on his house and worked to prove that Jim was innocent, eventually succeeding in getting the conviction reversed. This backstory was not just character color, it explained everything about Rockford. The wrongful conviction made Rockford distrust authority, sympathize with outcasts, and maintain friendships with fellow ex-cons like Angel Martin despite their constant betrayals. Although he was innocent of the charge of armed robbery for which he was imprisoned, in several episodes it is suggested that Rockford had at one time been a mostly successful con artist. This hinted at a darker past Rockford preferred to leave buried. The 5 years at San Quentin taught him survival skills, street smarts, and the art of deception he used throughout the series. Rocky's sacrifice, mortgaging his home to save his son, created the guilt that bound them together. Fact number 2. The hospital bed standoff that killed the show without warning or farewell. Just before Christmas 1979, Garner was hospitalized with a bleeding ulcer in La Jolla, his suffering compounded by numerous other physical problems. Over the years, he had busted his kneecaps, requiring multiple operations, ribs and knuckles, dislocated discs, and torn ligaments and tendons. From his hospital bed, Garner shut down production of The Rockford Files, and the last episode aired in January 1980. Universal Studios then sued Garner, alleging breach of contract over the production shutdown. Around the same time, Garner was assaulted in Los Angeles by 2 people following a minor car accident. Season 6 consisted of only 12 episodes instead of the usual 24, cut short mid-season. The final episode that aired ended exactly the same as all the others. There was not even a hint that this could be the very last airing, as it faded to black in the usual fashion. NBC never officially canceled the show. Fans received no closure, no farewell, no resolution. Jim Rockford simply vanished mid-season, leaving viewers confused and heartbroken. Fact number 1. The surprising resurrection that proved Jim Rockford could never truly die. After several long-running contractual disputes between Garner and Universal were resolved, 8 Rockford Files reunion TV movies were made from 1994 to 1999, airing on the CBS network. The original series had aired on NBC, and the reunion movies reunited most of the cast from the original show. Beery died on November 1st, 1994, so the first of these films, which aired later that month, stated, "This picture is dedicated to the memory of Noah Beery Jr. We love you and miss you, Pidge." The first reunion movie, I Still Love L.A., which aired November 27th, 1994, drew an estimated 17 to 18 million television households. That audience figure was comparable to what the series was drawing at the peak of its popularity in 1975. It scored approximately an 18 rating with a 28 share, finishing as one of the highest-rated made-for-TV movies of the 1994 to 1995 season. According to Garner's memoir, The Garner Files, he insisted upon being fully paid up front before the shooting began on each of the Rockford TV movies. After years of legal battles and being cheated by creative accounting, Garner would never trust the studios again. The movies picked up nearly 15 years later from where the show ended. 14 years after the bitterness and pain, Jim Rockford returned, proving the character's enduring appeal and Garner's undiminished star power.